Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I am your host, Benedikt, and I am not here with my friend and co-host, Malcolm owen-flood today. Malcolm is still away on a work trip. We ran out of episodes that we prepared in advance, and also you might notice if you're watching on YouTube that I'm at home here in my office cave sort of thing with this weird angle talking directly into my laptop camera here. Because I can't be at the studio because I have COVID. So everything's different. I feel fine, though. It wasn't too bad. Fortunately, I guess I got lucky. I took a quick break from work, but it wasn't too bad. So I'm back. But everything's different. No co-host, not at my typical studio. But I thought about how I could make this episode as valuable as possible for you, of course, and not just make some sort of filler episode. And I think I came up with something pretty amazing. So usually when Malcolm is here, we do a lot of back and forth. We share stories. We have a banter. It's this more of, it's not just the hard facts, but everything around it and sort of the thing that we two have going together here. This is not the case, obviously, today. So I'm just going to give you some hard facts. Just going to give you some hard, actionable things that you can take and run with and implement right away. So this is going to be a very actionable, very practical episode, which I think is actually a good thing to have because we have a lot of these big picture, deeper episodes anyway. So long story short, it's about how to position your microphones in front of any source, basically, that could be part of a band, and how to do that quickly and with confidence, and how to get great starting points, basically. So the thing is, you should experiment. We always preach that. We always say that you should find unique tones, unique mic positions, unique mic choices, placements in the room, and all of that to make it yours. But also, I really believe in having a good process to be fast, to be able to work intuitively, and that requires you to have starting points or templates or presets or whatever you want to call it for basically everything. Not so that you always use those, but so that you can quickly get something that is sounding great and usable, and then you can always tweak and refine if you have the time. But you shouldn't spend too much time worrying about those things before you even record the first note or first idea, right? When inspiration strikes, when you have an idea, you should be able to immediately capture that. When you are in the actual session, you should be able to focus on your performance. And if you want to record something in addition that wasn't planned or whatever, you have to be able to quickly set something up and be able to capture that and not spend another day trying to figure out how to actually do that. So for you to be able to do that, I thought it would be great to have sort of a cheat sheet, sort of a starting point that you can look at and easily be like, yeah, that's what I'm going to try today. That's what I'm going with. And I take it from there and I can always refine. So I prepared a mic placement cheat sheet that is completely free. I prepared that for you a while ago, actually, but I haven't talked about it a lot. It's one of those things that I haven't mentioned too much on the podcast, although it's there and although I think it's really valuable. And you'll find that if you go to the selfrecordingband.com, just the homepage, the main website, and you just scroll down, and then you find 2 free downloads there. And one of those is the mic placement cheat sheet. So go to the selfrecordingband.com, scroll down a bit, and you'll find it. And in this episode today, I'm going to walk you through what's actually on this mic placement cheat sheet, and I help you implement that and get the most of it. So it's just a simple PDF. It's one page. It literally has a very short, quick starting point for kick drum, snare drum, toms, overheads, room mics, guitars, bass, and vocals. And you can start with those mic positions and refine from there. But really, this one PDF, this one page, has all you need in it to be able to capture a whole band, basically, without thinking about it too much. It just works. Is it the ideal position for every song? Definitely not. Is it something I do every time? Definitely not. Is it a great starting point, and will it work? Yes, in 95% of all cases. So let's start. I'm going to walk you through this, and I'm going to explain those starting points, why they work, what's the thought process behind them, the principles behind it, and then you can download the cheat sheet, follow along, and implement this on your next demo recording or your next actual production, whatever you're working on. So let's go. Let's start with the kick drum, or the drums in general, but let's start with the kick drum. So if you have a mic inside the kick drum, the closer you get to the better head, the more attack or click you get, right? So you put a mic inside the kick and get close to the batter head if you want a lot of click. The closer to the resonant head you get less attack and more body. So pull it away from the batter head, closer to the resonant head, and you get less attack, less click, and more body of the kick drum. So a sweet spot would be like halfway inside the kick, and then if you decide that it needs more click, move it closer towards the inside, towards the batter head. If you think it needs more body and it's too clicky, pull it out a little bit more towards the resonant head and find your balance there. That's what I would do if I had only one kick mic. If you decide to use an outside kick, either as a standalone kick drum mic or as a second kick drum mic, then this will give you a more full, round, and natural sound. So it's going to be less clicky, or you almost get no click from the beater, but you get a full sound of what the kick drum sounds like if you stand like in front of it, right? You get more of the wood, you get more of the ambience around it, the air around it. It sounds more natural, but it's also less direct and less clicky, less like present. So try combining the two if you can. One for the definition and the beater attack, the other one for the fullness and the natural sound of the kick on the outside. All right, snare drum. And like to end this with a real starting point, as I said, I would say one kick mic in the center of the kick inside, and then find the balance by pushing it further towards the resonant, towards the batter head, or pulling it out towards the resonant head. If you have one mic, if you have two mics, I would put the inside mic as close as I can to the resonant, to the beater, to the batter head. Leave a little gap there, of course, like you don't want to have it all the way up the batter head, but like leave a little bit of a distance there. But put one very, very close to the batter head, and then put the other mic right on the resonant head on the outside, also with just a little gap in between. This is a great starting point. You can balance out the two, you can align the phase, and it will work great in most cases. So these were are my starting points. For some genres, the outside only can work too. If you're doing jazz or some acoustic stuff, something that's not too like loud and present and like heavy or modern, then an outside mic alone can work too. All right, snare drum. Number one here is point it away from the hi-hats. Get closer to the head if you want more body, further away if you want a more balanced and open sound, which will also give you a little bit of more cymbal bleed, so there's this trade-off. If you get closer to the center, you get more stick attack. If you point it closer to the center, you get more stick attack. If you get closer to the rim or shell, you get more of the overtones, the ring, and the sound of the actual shell, right? So great starting point to me is like a pretty flat angle right above the rim, pointing straight at the center of the snare drum. So pretty flat, right above the rim, pointing straight at the snare drum, and the back of the mic pointing towards below the hi-hat. So towards the hi-hat, or towards like the hi-hat stand, basically below the hi-hats. So you want to make sure that if you have a cardioid mic, that the back of the mic with the most rejection is facing the hi-hat, so you get the least amount of hi-hat bleed in your snare mic. So that's a starting point for me. Point it away from the hi-hats, position the capsule right above the rim at a flat angle, pointing like a pretty flat, not completely flat, but pretty flat angle, pointing straight at the center of the snare. And then again, listen to what that sounds like. Move it closer to the head if you want more body. Move it further away for a more balanced and open sound, which will also give you more cymbals though. Move it closer to the center for even more stick attack. Move it closer to the rim or shell to get more overtones. You can also play with the angle, not just the moving the mic, but like the angle. Angle it more towards the outside. More overtones, more ring, more sound of the overall snare. Flat angle aiming towards the inside. Towards the center gives you more attack and less of the ring. So yeah, try that. But also, I think the flat angle pointing straight at the center is like a great balance in many cases for me, because it's sort of it's aiming like across the whole snare, and it gets me some of the shell, some of the ring, some of the attack. It's pointing straight at where the stick hits, so it's pretty defined. I just find that to be a great starting point. So yeah, experiment with that. But as I said, experiment, but like use it as a starting point, because that's the point of this episode. It will get you a pretty decent snare drum sound. If the snare is tuned and everything correctly, it will give you a pretty decent snare drum sound right away. So you don't have to do anything crazy. Just grab a 57 and do that, and it will sound at least usable. So toms, point away from cymbals. Same thing. Make sure you don't aim it at the crash cymbals or the ride cymbals. The ride cymbal or hi-hats or anything, but like crash and ride more than anything with toms. Basically, the same principles apply as with the snare drum. The thing with the toms is try to point the mic straight down at a very steep angle. So with a snare, I said use a flat angle, because the snare typically can be pretty pokey anyways and can have a lot of attack anyways. So you can get away with the flat angle and get sort of a big picture thing of the whole drum. With toms, try to point the mic straight down at a very steep angle, right at the head, for maximum attack and clarity. And if you use a flat angle, it softens the attack and you get more of the whole drum. With the snare, that's cool because you don't want it to be too pokey. But with toms, sometimes the extra definition and attack is really, really good, because a lot of people don't hit toms really hard. And with fast fills and all that, you lose sort of the definition, and you want to get as much of the attack as possible. And you get that by pointing the mic straight down in a 90 degrees angle directly at the head, the better head. It doesn't have to be in the center. Obviously, you can't hit the toms anymore, but like slightly inside the rim, straight down at the tom for maximum attack and clarity. Angle it a little more. This will soften, and this will soften the attack. Point it more towards the center, and you get some of the attack back. But like an angle will always have a softer attack than like pointing it straight down at the drum head. So starting point, I'd say maybe 45. Let's say 45 degrees, aiming away at from the cymbals. Yeah, 45 degrees at like the spot right between the rim and the center of the tom. That would be my starting point. And if I want more attack, I make the angle even steeper. If I want less attack, or like I want a softer attack, a more big picture, full sound of the tom, I would go for the flatter angle. That's what I would do. All right, overheads. Imagine a line through the kick and snare and think of it as the middle axis of the kit. Place the mics equidistant from that line to keep kick and snare centered. So that means if you look at the drum kit from above and you imagine the line through the kick and the snare, and you think of that as the middle axis of the kit, then that means that the two overheads are not like left and right from the drummer's perspective. They are to the left, but also in front of you, almost between like where the hi-hat and the crash would be on the left side. And then the other one would be slightly more to the right and a little further back, like somewhere between the floor tom and the ride, maybe. You understand that idea? So there's this line through the snare and the kick, and that's the center. And then you have the two overheads, one like slightly in front of you to the left, and one like right next to your right shoulder or somewhere there. And what that does is it keeps the kick and the snare in the center of the image if you pan those left and right. Whereas what a lot of people do is they put the mics directly over the cymbals, over the crash cymbals, or they put them like left and right directly in front of them from the drummer's perspective. And what that does is that the snare drum will often be slightly to the left and the kick will be slightly to the right. And you don't want that in your image. So try to make sure that the kick and snare are centered, and then use this line as the middle axis of the kit. The same is true if you use an XY combination. No matter the technique, like you can use a spaced pair, an AB, an XY, or an ORTF. You can Google all those if you want. These are stereo miking techniques. No matter the technique, you always need the center, like middle axis, with any of these. And this should be this line that you imagine through the kick and the snare. All right, now listen and turn or move the mics more towards the cymbals or towards the shells until it sounds balanced. So, rule of thumb, in a problematic room, I would start with an XY. I think in an untreated home studio sort of room or jam space, an XY is a good idea to start with because it eliminates some of the phase problems that you probably get. It like makes for a stable center image. The capsules are aligned. Like XY means a 90-degree angle of the two capsules as close as possible together, and they are aiming straight down at this line. One is pointing left of the line, the other one is pointing right of the line. So you have them in the center of the kit in this XY setup, and then you just turn them around. They stay at the spot, and they aim you have this middle axis, but then you can turn them slightly to make sure that you capture the stuff that you want to capture. The kick and snare will still remain center, but you can choose how much of which symbol you want to capture, how much of which shell you want to capture in the overheads. So that's what I would start with. If you want a wider image, I would start with the spaced pairs, as those are the only two options that I recommend as starting points, XY or spaced pair. Spaced pair is what you see on most pictures, I think, of mic drum kits. This one mic on the left, one mic on the right. And again, equal distance from this imaginary line through kick and snare, but then you can turn them around a little bit and change the angle and choose what the mics are facing. And you can get a good balance of the cymbals and the shells depending on what you want to hear in the image. So just put them there as a starting point, and then move them around slightly, turn them around slightly, and listen to the recording, to the result, until you feel like, okay, every cymbal and every shell is represented and in a good way, and the balance is great, and there's nothing too loud or too quiet on those overheads. This might result in like weird angles. Sometimes the mics are pointing at the drummer, sometimes they are pointing away from the drummer, sometimes they're pointing straight down. That oftentimes works. No rules here. Just make sure that the kick and snare are centered and that the internal balance of the whole kit makes sense. And the more problematic the room is, and the more stable you need your center image to be, I would go for the XY. And if you have a pretty controlled room, or you want a super wide overhead image, then try the spaced pair or like AB thing, where one mic is on the left and one is on the right. Either way, pan them hard left and right and see what that sounds like. All right. Room mics. Walk around the room, listen and find the spots with the most energy and vibe. Place the mics there. Simple as that. Like, just walk around while the drummer's playing and find the spots that you think sound cool, because there's no rules, and room mics are supposed to give you energy, vibe, ambience, of course, explosiveness, whatever the close mic setup is lacking. And you'll just figure that out by walking around the room and listening. And then you put the mic there. You can do that in mono or in stereo, depending on the amounts of inputs that you have. Yeah, it's more about the vibe than it is about technical perfection. So pointing the mics away from the kit can make the room sound bigger. For example, if you have a small room and you point the room mics away from the kit, it makes the room sound bigger. Pointing it straight at the drum kit is a little more direct, of course. A mono room can glue the kit together. If you have like wide overheads in a mono room that is pan center, it can add, like, it can fill in this gap in the middle. Stereo rooms can give you a great wide image, of course. Like, there's literally no rules. So my starting point for room mics is walk around quickly, have the drummer play for like a minute or so, walk around the room, and whenever you find a spot where you feel like, wow, the low end here sounds really big, or wow, here it sounds really explosive, and here's a nice decay or whatever, just put a mic there, see what it sounds like, and if you like it, go with that. Like, follow your intuition, follow your gut feeling, do it quickly, don't overthink it. Yeah. So it's different for every room. So this is why I can't give you a great starting point or like preset sort of here. But my recommendation is to just quickly walk around the room, listen, and put a mic or two where you think it sounds great. All right, guitars. Record a DI and a mic simultaneously. That's the tip number one here. With a mic, the closer you are to the cap, the more low end you get. The closer to the center of the cone of the speaker you are, the more highs you get, but it can also get harsh. The closer to the edge of the cone you get, the warmer it gets, and the more low end you're going to capture. And a great starting point is exactly the spot where the dust cap meets the cone. So if you take a flashlight and you look inside, like look behind the grill of your speaker cabinet, and so that you can see the actual speaker, you can just grab your phone, turn a light on, and like try to see what's behind the grill. And once you see the speaker, try to find the spot where the dust cap in the center, the round circle in the center, where that meets the cone. So this transition there, and try to start with one mic right there. And if you find it's too dark, move it even more towards the center, right above the, like right at the dust cap, basically. If you find it's too harsh, move it more towards the outside. You get more low end, you get more body, and find the sweet spot there. Do that with one mic, literally one mic, and only add a second mic if you can't get, or like if you should be able to get some sort of decent tone with one mic. But if you have that and you still feel like something's missing, then add a second mic to add that. But really do the exercise with one mic, do it quickly, and somewhere in the center between the center of the speaker, like in the middle between the center of the speaker and the outside of the speaker, somewhere there will be your sweet spot. And this great starting point that works very, very often is right where the dust cap meets the cone. Again, record a DI and a mic simultaneously, just in case, so you can always go back and reamp things. When it comes to distance, I would say start right at the grill, and only if you feel like you're getting too much low end and it's too boomy, move it away slightly from the cap, but don't go too far, otherwise you get a lot of room sound, which is mostly not like very desirable with electric guitars, depending on the room always, of course, but like I would get right at the grill, and when in doubt, I would rather use like a filter or something to get rid of some of the low end, but the most energy and this direct sound that you get from that is what you want in most cases. So yeah, straight up the grill, pointing at where the dust cap meets the cone is your starting point. Bass. Record a DI and the mic simultaneously. Same thing. And also same principle applies. Same principles apply. That's what I wanted to say. If you get closer to the cap, you get more low end. If you get closer to the center of the speaker, you get more highs. And you also get, with the bass, that means you get more of the pick sounds and finger sounds, right? If you get closer to the edge, it's going to get warmer. It's going to get fuller. It's going to be less direct, of course. You're going to get more low end. So a great starting point with bass, actually, to me, is dead center, because I like the articulation. I like the pick sounds, the finger sounds, the definition that you get in the center. So I would start with positioning it dead center. And if you think that it's too clicky or too present or whatever, then move it towards the outside slightly. But with a bass, honestly, there will be more than enough low end from a cap anyways. The really, really low end, you don't get that from any cap. You need the DI for that. That's another reason to always record the DI with a bass, I think. But like I don't know how to say it, like the harmonics in the low end and the stuff that's also audible on smaller speakers, the growl and the fullness of the bass. You get all of that with miking a cap closely, and you get more than enough of that probably. But what you often don't get enough of is the articulation, the definition, the details, the presence. So I would start with like pointing it straight at the center of the speaker if you want to use a mic at all on a bass. But it's cool. I would try it. With vocals, the closer to the mic you get, the more low end you get. Same as with any mic. Any directional mic has this proximity effect. So if you go with vocals, it's the same thing. If I go very close to the mic, I'm going to have a lot more low end in my voice compared to when I go further away, right? So the closer to the mic you are, the more low end you're going to have. If you sing straight into the mic, it's going to sound direct and aggressive because all the air and like the breathing and all the plosives and all of that goes straight at the diaphragm, straight at the capsule. If you slightly angle the mic away from your mouth, you can tame the S's. So the way I'm talking now on this podcast is my mic is pretty far away, actually, and I'm not talking into it. I'm talking like away from it, actually, almost like to the side, because I'm reading from my laptop here and I have this weird office setup, and also I want to prevent like plosives and S's and stuff. If I talk directly into the mic, it will probably sound a little better and more direct, but also at the risk of having like plosives and sounds that are harsh, and it's more aggressive, more direct, and probably better sounding. But also, yeah, if you want to slightly tame the S's and P's and all that, you have to slightly angle the mic, and that usually does the trick. You want to avoid the direct airflow into the capsule, and you're not as drastic as I do it on this podcast now, just a tiny little bit. You sing directly into the mic basically, but you just angle it a little bit to break the airflow or to avoid the direct airflow into the mic. If you have the mic slightly lower, pointing up, you have more air and highs and top end articulation, because this comes from the top of your mouth basically. And for most people, if you make an S sound, you can feel the air at your lower lips. So the air, it starts at the top of your mouth basically, and then it goes down. So if you have the mic lower pointing up, you get more of this airflow, more of the breathiness, more of the highs, more of the S's and the top end articulation. It's slightly that stuff happens slightly below your mouth usually for most people. If you have the mic higher pointing down, you get more of the mids and the nose, quote unquote nose, less of the definition and highs and air, but it's also going to be a little more, yes, this nice, like gritty mid range that you're going to get without the harsh top end stuff. So oftentimes with very aggressive vocalists, I'll have the mic higher aiming down, and then I'm getting very close to the mic so I can have this very aggressive direct sound, but without all the harshness and the S's and the P's, so that all that stuff, the air is sort of going, it's sort of not hitting the mic, it's below the mic, but the mic is still very close to the mouth, just pointing down from an angle, like from above, right? And if I want a very airy, breathy pop performance sort of thing, then I have the mic slightly lower, pointing up at the mouth, and I keep a little bit of a distance to avoid too much of the aggressiveness and the air and the plosives and all that. But it gives me the breathiness and the air, and it's different, honestly, for different people. So I don't have a really good starting point here. I'd say a starting point is like, put like your hand, I would say, when it comes to distance, put like your hand, your thumb at your nose, and then, spread like from your thumb to your, it's weird. If you don't want, like, if you're watching the video, you see what I'm doing right now this year, right? If you don't see the video, I'd say the distance of like one hand between you and the mic. So you touch your nose with your thumb, and then you spread your fingers, and then where your smallest finger like touches the mic. Wait. Like, yeah, that's where the mic should be. That's a horrible explanation. Sorry, I'm still not fully there after my COVID thing, I guess. So I think you know what I mean. One hand distance between your nose and the mic, and then that's about the distance that I would recommend. And then you put it slightly below or above your mouth and angle it up or down, depending on whether you want to have more of the top end definition or you want to have less of the sibilance and more of the mid range. That's my recommendation. So I don't know why I can't explain this distance thing that I was trying to explain. I'm lacking the right words for that, but I hope it makes sense. I don't even know. I can't even remember the word for small finger because in German it's literally just the small finger. Is there a word for that in English? I'll have to Google that real quick. Sorry for that. Let's see. Oh, the pinky finger. Yeah. How could I forget about this? Okay, so I'm trying once again. So you touch your nose with your thumb, and then you spread your fingers. So your palm faces towards the side. So and then where your pinky is, that's where you want to have the mic, right? So I hope that makes any sort of sense. Watch the video if you can. And then aim it upwards or downwards. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. And I don't even know why I always do that with the nose. I mean, you could do it with the mouth, but for some reason that sort of is the distance. Like if I do that, that also gives me sort of a, I don't know, just works. Watch the video. That was the worst podcast moment I think we ever had on the show. Anyway, that is it. I think I'll do a quick recap, just a really, really quick one. Kick drum. Inside kick gives you click. Outside kick gives you thump and natural sound. Better hand click, resonant hand body, fullness. And starting point for kick straight in the middle between resonant and better head. Pull it out for more body. Push it in for more click. Snare drum. Flat angle, pointing straight at the center of the snare, away from the hi-hats, right above the rim. Toms. Point away from cymbals. Try to point the mic straight down, or like not straight down, but like at a 45 degrees angle. Aim it right between, like at the middle between the rim and the center of the drum. Want more attack, make the angle even steeper. Want a more full picture of the drum, make it flatter. But that's the starting point. So 45 degrees, pretty close to the head, away from cymbals, aiming straight at halfway between the rim and the center of the drum. Overheads. Imagine a line through kick and snare. Think of this as the middle axis of the kit. Place 2 mics equidistant from that line to keep kick and snare centered. Listen and turn or move those mics more towards cymbals or towards shells until it sounds balanced. Less than ideal room, try XY. Good room, or if you want a wider image, try AB or spaced pair. Either way, use that middle axis of the kit and listen for the internal balance of the whole kit. Room mics. Just walk around, listen, find the spots with the most energy and vibe, place the mics there. You can do mono or stereo. It's more about the vibe than about technical perfection. Pointing mics away from the kit can make the room sound bigger. Record a DI mic simultaneously for guitars. The closer you are to the cap, the more low end you get. The closer to the center of the cone you are, the more highs you get. But it can also get harsh. The closer to the edge of the cone you are, the warmer it gets. It gives you more low end. A great starting point is where the dust cap meets the cone, right? Right at the grill, as close as you can get, and then point it right where the dust cap of one speaker meets the cone. All right. With a bass, record a DI and mic simultaneously, same thing. Closer to the cap you are, the more low end you get. The closer to the center of the speaker you are, the more highs you get. The more pick sound and finger sounds and articulations and all of that you get. So closer to the edge, it's going to be warmer, fuller, less direct. Of course, you're going to get more low end. But for bass, my preferred starting point is like dead center, right at the dust cap. You still get enough low end, more than enough usually, and you get all the definition and top end articulation that is often missing with bass recordings. Vocals. The closer to the mic you are, the more low end you're going to get. If you sing straight into the mic, it's going to be direct and aggressive. If you can avoid the direct airflow into the mic, that's oftentimes preferred. So slightly angle the mic to tame the S's and the P's, the plosives. If you have the mic lower pointing up, you're going to have to get more air and highs and sibilants and top end articulation. If you have the mic a little higher pointing down, you get more of the nose and the mids. A great starting point is, again, my wonderful demonstration that I completely messed up before, is if you spread your hand, the distance between your thumb and the pinky finger, if you put your hand toward like your thumb on your nose and then you spread your fingers, where your pinky is, that's where you want to have, where your pinky ends, that's where you want to have the mic. That's a good starting point. And then you can get closer for more direct and sound, and for more low end, you can move away from the mic even more for more room sound and the less direct sound. You can angle the mic, as I said, all those things. Great starting point is straight into the mic at this distance. And then depending on whether you want more top-end articulation or whether you want more mid-range and less top-end, you can move the mic down or up and then angle it towards the mouth or slightly away from the mouth, whatever you prefer. All right, hope that helps. Again, this is a very practical episode, and all of the things that I just explained in this episode are in a very short form, easy to digest form, on this cheat sheet that I mentioned. So if you go to the selfrecordingband.com and you just scroll down on the main homepage, you'll find the mic placement cheat sheet there as a free download. It's one page, a PDF. You can just take it to your jam space or have it on your phone or wherever. You can print it out and hang it somewhere or just have it on your phone, and you can easily and quickly reference it the next time you record. It gives you great starting points, so you can capture your songs quickly without thinking about it for too long. You can move on, and you can, like when inspiration strikes, you can just quickly have a look, throw a mic there, see how it sounds, move on, and create and capture great art. And you can always refine later. These starting points will be good enough to at least capture a great demo, pre-production, maybe even the final recording, and you can always take it from there. All right, hope this was helpful. I've got some cool things in store for you, so I don't think Malcolm will be back next week, but it also probably won't be a solo episode. I can't say too much at this point, but we have great things planned out for you, and I'm excited for that. So talk to you next week, and please forgive me my little rambly solo episode here. I hope I made it valuable still and not just a filler. All right. Thank you for listening, as always. Appreciate you. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.